Michael Olise has rejected Chelsea, leaving everyone wondering, will Pochettino even notice he's not there? This is the Arsenal Vision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Yeah, we've just heard news that Olise has signed a new deal with Crystal Palace, will not be going to Chelsea as was previously expected. But will Chelsea notice? When Pochettino walks in there and there's just like a crowd like on a subway platform in his dressing room, will he even notice if Olise is not there? I mean, he's going to have to come up with some kind of fun dice game or card game or something to decide lineups because it's going to be impossible to remember all the names. He's going to need a mnemonic or something like just remember Mudryk, Mud. You're in the mud. You're Mikhailo Mudryk. You're the guy who's in the mud, right? He's going to have to come up with those mnemonics to remember names. I will tell you that there were various Timber puns in my mind to open this podcast with, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I mean, the guy's name is Timber. It lends itself to a lot of puns related to the situation we find ourselves in and he finds himself in. But I have taken the high road, as I am wont to do, as you know me to do, and not gone with any of the puns or even is it a Kesha song? Is it Kesha who does the Timber song? Who does the song? I honestly have no idea.
Is it Pitbull? I don't know.
Is it Pitbull? I've gone with Kesha. If it winds up being Pitbull, yeah, I'm going to get dragged. See, here's the thing, right? It is Pitbull. Thank you. I could have just said nothing because I didn't go with the song. And now I've brought up Kesha and I've, my credibility is toast. All right. Well, how do you do, fellow kids? Is all I'm going to say to that. Thanks, Tim. You were like a tenth of a second too late to save me from myself. But yeah, we will talk about Timber. It is really sad for him. We will miss him, and we will talk about whether the club need to pivot, what that pivot might be, how we might line up. We're going to look ahead to the Palace game, and then we will talk a little bit about the window, what's going on with Chelsea. I want to touch on the United Wolves game because I got news for you folks. United might be really, really bad at football, which would be a lot of fun. And I think that would be an interesting thing to talk about. So we have some stuff to get stuck into, and here to stick into it with me, I'll workshop that in post, is Tim. You can find him on Twitter at Stominator. Hello, Tim.
Hello there. It's really nice news for me that I'm the most on the pulse with my kind of cultural references on the podcast. That's it's a low bar, but one I'm happy I cleared.
You are the hip one. To be fair, you are the young one, which also is a little disturbing. But
yeah,
there you go.
Again, a low bar to clear, but I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. And joining me for Boomer Hour is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at CliveBFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
I do want everyone to know we did a little bit of Timber analysis and Chelsea analysis over on Patreon. It was the preamble to the rewatch video for the Forest game. And the new Clive video was rolled out, the new Clive introduction video. I think it's a masterpiece. I mean, given my video editing skills, it's a masterpiece. We also have new music for the Patreon stuff, and I want to thank Paul for that. Not Pause Paul, different Paul, Invinciblog, who did an amazing job with that. So thanks to that. Lots of good stuff going over there. Did our first office hours of the season as well. But what's going on over here is hopefully a great podcast that you will enjoy, and we are so thrilled to have you here. I just want to say this. I was going to bed last night, and scrolling through Twitter and Discord as you do to get yourself nice and sleepy and put your head in a good space for rest. And this is going to sound really weird, but I actually felt really, really happy because I was chatting to some friends I have on Twitter and then chatting to some friends in Discord. And I was like, this is great. Look at this great community of people that I can just chat to and have fun with. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I just want you to know how much you mean to us, how much you mean to me. Like, sometimes just being able to stop and be grateful and appreciative for what you have is a good thing. I don't think we always take time to do that. So if you have something good going on, I hope you appreciate it. And if not, certainly hope the best for you. It was a thought going through my mind last night and I wanted to share it today. Anyway, you can dismiss that along with my music knowledge if you choose. Okay. So the Timber thing, Tim, like, let's do this. Let's not speculate about certain components of the injury that I think are beyond our knowledge. I think we can stipulate, as you'd say as an attorney, right? You stipulate to certain facts. We will stipulate to the fact that it doesn't look great that Timber came back on for the second half. That doesn't look great. We have no idea who was cleared for what or what they thought or when the injury happened. There's absolutely no ability for us to know that. So we'll stipulate to the fact that it doesn't look great, but we're not going to draw any conclusions from it. We can stipulate to the fact that most ACLs mean he's going to miss the whole season. Maybe he's back late March. Maybe he's not. I mean, I I struggle to believe he's going to be back. So let's just stipulate for the moment to the idea that we'll be without Timber for the entire season, because I think it is the safer assumption on which to build the argument, and get into what I think is the meatier part of the discussion, which is where this leaves us now. Of course, it is dreadful for Jurrien Timber, and I've seen a lot of people saying they feel like the joy has been sucked out of the season by this. I get it. Bright young player, made his big move in his career, huge moment for him in his career, had become a star this summer. We will miss him. We will back him when he gets back, and I'm sure he'll still have a great Arsenal career. But for now, Tim, let's not talk the transfer side of it. Let's just talk the squad side of it. How do you see Mikel adjusting to the absence, and which players or formations do you think become the primary option for coping with Timber's loss?
Yeah, it's interesting. We discussed this a little bit on the Discord yesterday, and I've only just caught up with the rewatch pod that you and Clive did earlier this week, where you talked about this as well, and it's kind of helped me, well, not crystallize my thoughts, but crystallize my not lack of thoughts either. The fact that I haven't made any firm decisions about any of this, because we talked in the Discord about, would you buy someone, for example? And I think my initial position was yes, but not just anyone, like not just a body. That it would have to be someone who would add what Timber adds, which is, to use your phrase, I'm coming for a shirt type player. In terms of the squad, I mean, there's a part of me that thinks if one injury changes your transfer plans, then your squad was very fragile looking, because this could have happened on September the 3rd against Man United. Then you can't buy anyone, and you've got the absence for almost as long. That's just like one more game, essentially. So, well, two more games. So, there's a part of me that thinks that one injury shouldn't change that much. But then I do get the side that if I were a manager and I'd lost someone, just before the end of the transfer window, and the opportunity is there to go, okay, we've lost someone, we can bring someone in and be at the same number. I get that as well, but I don't think it should be a mad scramble for anyone. But I think one of the players, and when we were talking about this in the Discord, and it was like, well, for left back, we've still got Kivior and Tierney, by the way, and Tomiyasu and Zinchenko. Like, we're actually pretty well stacked there. It's really difficult because we've got so many versatile defenders. It's sometimes difficult to sort out in your brain how many defenders we've actually got, because you end up listing people. Like, you could list Tomiyasu in every position across that back four, but he's still only one player. So it becomes kind of difficult to really sort out in your head. Like, if Tomiyasu's a backup right back and left back, but he's only one player, like, what's going on there? I think, that I don't actually know whether this is true, but there's that line in The Simpsons about, is it in Chinese that crisis and opportunity are the same word?
Yeah.
And I guess we've lost Timber, but I kind of think in the last year we've lost Tomiyasu as well. And this might be an opportunity to get him back. We've got him. We know him. We've seen him play really, really well. So we know he's good, probably through injury. And then, maybe not the squad, but the starting 11 moved past him a bit. We lost him a little bit. This might be a chance to get him back and say, actually, there's now one fewer player. Like, because that Timber was kind of an obstructor for Tomiyasu, right? Because Tomiyasu could stand there and say, hang on, I can play right back, centre back, and left back as well.
Yeah, you can.
And I can do it well. So, there is a part of me that thinks maybe we get this player back, instead of just kind of losing him in that kind of 18 to 20 bracket of our squad. So, but we don't know how that's going to work. There's no guarantee that's definitely going to work. But I kind of tend to look at it that way. Like, let's integrate this player more again. And I guess you've got to cross your fingers that his body can stand up to it. But at the same time, maybe that kind of role where he's not the absolute pivotal player like Timber wasn't, but can fill in a number of roles, could suit him.
People forget, like, last summer when Saliba was integrating, there was like this debate: would Tomiyasu come back and win his right back place back, and White might be out in the cold and like have to be a rotational player? Like, when Tomiyasu arrived, I'm not suggesting that Tomiyasu is as good as Timber. I'm not sure I think that. And I certainly don't think he was as highly regarded a talent when we signed him as Timber was, who was regarded quite highly. But Tomiyasu came in, was as good and as impactful for the first half season as Timber was. Now, Tomiyasu was coming in to a worse side, which makes it easier to have that impact. It is a big window for him. The other thing that he plays left center back for Japan. This system that we used on the opening day, where we have 3 at the back and we use Timber sort of as a left center back, that is a much easier one for Timber to come in and do, I think, than the other things. Clive, what the acquisition of Rice has done in a weird way, it's made us need one less defender if we want. Because we saw this against Forest. We went 3 at the back. I mean, yes, Partey did play right back in some off the ball formations and in terms of his defensive responsibility, but really it was a 3-2. It was White, Saliba, and Timber with Rice and Partey in front of them, and that's dynamic and fluid, I get it. But it means that we had one less true defender on the pitch. Well, now we can go White, Saliba, and Gabriel if we want, with Rice and Partey. And Rice can do a little of what Partey did. And you do need one less defender. Plus, I think as good as Timber was, Zinchenko is still the guy who would have been our preference in most games. We talked about this on our pod together on Patreon. Where this really hurts us is I think it hurts us finishing games. I think it hurts us in some of the bigger games, like a City away or something, where we might want to do something just a little different from Zinchenko. But what do you think about that new system, newish, because we saw it a bit at the very end of last season, the new system, Clive, where we use 3 recognized defenders, and might that be the way forward in the sense so that there isn't a Timber replacement? There's just one less defender on the pitch.
No, I think Forest was a unique game. I think they had the lowest recorded possession stats last season, and we knew we was going to have the ball. So we took a call to focus on build-up, and we took out our worst build-up player, who happens to be our best defender, and put in another build-up player and built them up to death, right? But we didn't score enough goals to make the game as comfortable as it should have been. If I just go back on Timber a little bit, and I'm all behind the Tomiyasu stuff. I think he's excellent, and I do think he didn't have, he got over the calf strains and he slipped and done his knee. So he has 2 separate injuries. One of those injuries, we brought him back too soon because we needed him, and he repeated it. So part of that is our fault. Then the knee injury was just unfortunate against Sporting Lisbon, right? So now he's back looking fit, and I think he's coming back. So huge fan of him. I don't care where he plays. For me, I think he's better on the left back side of things. If I'm honest with you, because I just think it slows him down. I have the same opinion on Timber, by the way. I think Timber was better on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I'm sure he would work it out. On the right-hand side, I felt he got attracted too high, too early, too long. It was against Manchester United. He wasn't fit yet and couldn't get back in, and we lost the game. Well, it wasn't his fault, just things I noticed, right? So he would have been a developing either side's 4th defender either side or 3rd defender either side. Would have been no problem for Timber to do that. Tomiyasu could do the same. When we bought Timber, we bought him in our minds to be a right-sided, right-footed defender that we suddenly started to use on the left. On the left-hand side of the pitch, we had cover. We had more than enough cover, right? So if anything, if we are looking to go into a transfer market, we should be looking at a right-sided, versatile defender. Does that need to happen right now? Not sure. Depends on sales, which is a huge factor. I just saw a message from Andy Allen earlier on, actually. This is where we do need to do something at some point. In January, we have the Asia Cup and we have the African Nations Cup, which means we're going to lose Tomiyasu and we're going to lose Thomas Partey. So at that point, we do need to do something because Timber's not coming back in no time for that to happen. So there is a action to happen. It's just a matter of when, who, market opportunities, when's the best time to move. Do it now or do it in January. But something needs to come in on the right-hand side of our defence, a right-footed player, whether it be a centre-back, whether it be a full-back. You make your choice depending on contractual position and who's going. It could be a last year for Tomiyasu type thing, where this year he's really, really valuable. Next year we go again and we upgrade that position. Do we do it earlier? Do we wait? And Timber comes back in. I think that's going to provide a challenge for Tomiyasu if Timber comes back in properly fit. And one other player we haven't mentioned here is Kivior, who I think is an outstanding player. We saw him do very well early in pre-season. We found something in Timber, which I think we used against Man City effectively. But Kiwior could easily start on the weekend. Easily. He was just getting into a level. So I think he will provide opportunities to people to remind us all that they still exist, shall we say.
The options are there. I think, people are reacting to this. People are reacting is a bad way to say it. I've seen some reactions to this, like we've lost the key player in our defense. And I think we've lost a valuable player in our defense who would have shared time in a position where I think we have a lot of options currently. Options that can be managed through formations and that can be managed through the squad. You've mentioned Tomiyasu and Kiwior, Clive. Zinchenko is the incumbent, and I still think the best player for that position against 60% of the league. Obviously, Tim, it puts strain on the fact that we have to manage multiple competitions. I think Clive rightly points out January is going to be really tricky. We're going to lose Party, and who knows whether we get him back or not, and in what condition. It's ironic because in a way it could be center back that is the area we might want to fortify. We feel kind of right back in that position again right now where Rob Holding's tapping on the glass a little bit, right? And saying, I'm still here and I'm ready to play. And I think with all affection for Rob Holding the man, Rob Holding the player probably has been passed by Arsenal's level and where we are right now. So I do want to think about dipping into the market a little bit. And you talked about opportunities. Emerick Laporte was one that I think we were looking at. It looks like he's off to Saudi Arabia, and I don't think that was the right call for us. Cancelo, I think, is going to Barcelona, maybe? Is that the latest rumor? I just don't see Cancelo's fallen out at a couple different clubs, so you have to worry about the fit in terms of team chemistry there. Not to mention that poor Zinchenko, right? Like he leaves and becomes the guy at Arsenal only to find himself back in a competition with Cancelo at left back at Arsenal. I don't know. Something about that dynamic doesn't work. Could you make an argument that center back is a place we could pick up a body and that might actually fortify us a little better in terms of what our current mix of players is? And if you want to fold in a rumor that's kind of faded, but that was a little scary of Gabriel going to Saudi Arabia into that conversation, because there have been rumors of Gabriel going to Saudi Arabia. I cannot in a million years understand how we would let that happen. No. But if enough money is offered, players' heads get turned, and that can be hard to turn them back. So your thoughts on maybe center back being the area that if we're going to bring a body in would actually balance things out the most in the absence of Timber?
Yeah, it could be. Again, it depends kind of how we see Tomiyasu, because I'm kind of with Clive there. It's the right side, really, which again is kind of the opposite to the discussion we had yesterday where we were discussing the left side. But I guess if you look at the right side, like right back, right centre back, if you don't include Holding, we've got like three players there, really. Tomiyasu, White, Saliba, all of whom, well, Tomiyasu can play both positions, White can play both positions. Saliba, again, as I said in our Discord discussion, he's the bona fide star. He's the one that you don't move him because he's the best. So yeah, I do think potentially on that right side, and it could be either or. It could be like another right back, and then you say that Tomiyasu's our kind of backup centre back there. But yeah, it could well be centre back. I guess, Arteta said, and this is quite obvious and self-evident, but when he was talking about David Raya, he said, we want two players for every position. So if you assume that it's a back four, we know it isn't really in practice, but we assume it's a back four, he wants 8 defenders, right? So, and if we conclude that Holding and Tierney are not part of that 8, then we're probably down to 7 without them. So that does potentially leave a space on that right-hand side. Maybe that's an opportunity for like a Rule Waters or someone like that. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit early for him. Maybe that'll be forced on us a little bit. Yeah. But again, like it's quite in an ideal world, we'd just go out and get like someone who can maybe play both positions like Timber could, etc., etc. That might be difficult to do, and we might be forced to be a little bit creative. We might just have to say, do you know what? we've got more DMs than we know what to do with. Partey's in the right back rotation because we've got Jorginho there, we've got Rice there, and you know what? We've still got El Neni as well. So that is an area where we've got like too much depth, like serious depth. So we can afford not permanently to take Partey away from that position, but we can afford to consider Partey a right back because like Rice and Jorginho between them have got his kind of spot covered. So it's not that situation where you've got one player covering for 4 positions and then he comes out a bit like Tomiyasu last season. Like we lost one player, but we lost 2 when he went down.
Yeah. The only thing I have with Partey at right back is I think there is a balance that Partey is still figuring out and that right backs understand when he gets into those wide spaces and tries to press up and make a decision about whether to...
It's not pretty, is it?
No, it isn't. And gets turned around and gets sprinted past. We saw it against City. We saw it against Forest. In fact, right after Forest scored the goal, there's a moment where he tries to do that and they just turn him around and sprint back. And that's when they get the shot from the top of the box that goes over. Clive and I saw a moment where that happened in the first half.
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah.
I think it's just the difference between a midfielder who can take that gamble. And by the way, is taking that gamble in smaller distances, right? When you're a central midfielder, you tend to be very close to the man and you tend to have to sprint a shorter distance to get there. And if you don't get the ball, you can take him out. When you're
Partey,
fullback...
Sorry, I was going to say, in Partey, when he plays that midfield role, he really does sit. Like Rice, we can play 6 or 8. We got loads of players we can do 6 or 8. But Partey, a bit like Jorginho, you can't really play him anywhere else precisely because it's a sitting role.
Yeah. By the way, can we just stop for a second and at least appreciate the fact of how far we've traveled, that we are rending our flesh. We are biting our nails. We are pulling our hair out, trying to figure out what to do about having just lost our backup left back who was looking pretty bright, and maybe the cover we have isn't sufficient cover because we only have Kiwi or Tomiyasu and all the other players, that are at our disposal. We are a very, very, very good squad. We have just lost a very, very, very good player. And even losing that player, we still look very, very solid. And there was a debate in the Discord going on about just to be clear, from a human level, there is absolutely no world where I want this to happen to Jurrien Timber. No world whatsoever. It's terrible. The debate, though, was in terms of the title race, does us losing Timber for a season hurt us as much as City losing De Bruyne potentially for 4 or 5 months? And ultimately, City didn't really have injuries last season. They just didn't. A big part of them maybe not winning the title again is going to be them maybe losing a few key players in a way they didn't last season. And they've already lost De Bruyne. So we'll see. Just one to keep an eye on there. I mean, that is going to be part of the luck that goes into a season. Clive, targets. This is right up your wheelhouse. Right in your wheelhouse. Right up your alley. Oh boy. I'm having some turn of phrase challenges today, but that's okay. We soldier on. What do you think? Let's say for a second that Arsenal are committed to going into the market to fortify in defensive areas, whether it's center back or full back.
Yeah.
Who should we go get? Loans, buys? What are we doing here?
Yeah, there's a few options, and I do agree with Tim's Raw Waters one and Partey discussion. I think it can be something that we use, right? So, but there are 2 or 3 options that are out there that we've been linked to in the past. There's one called Ivan Fresneda, who we've done our scouting on.
We did a scouting video on him, mate.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you, he's raw as hell.
Yeah, and a lot of people, really, really like him. And I gotta be honest, I saw that video, and I'm not as sure as some others. But hey, look, when I saw some of Timber stuff, I thought he looks interesting. But then when you see him play, and you see him in our team, and you see him as an individual, you think. And there's rumours that Arsenal, a lot of the club, are very down about the Timber injury because of the person and his impact on the group as a person. And I think that's really, we were down, weren't we? We did our video this week. We were down because we could see somebody that hadn't really shown all of his skills yet and was only going to get better at particularly big games. So it felt quite sad. So Ivan Fresneda is one. Another one is Mohamed Simikan, who's a right back, similar to Ben White. Could play centre back, 6'1", very leggy, not so good on the ball. I think he's at RB Leipzig at the moment, French under 21 international. And there's 2 centre backs which are very interesting. One that I've been tap to look at. A guy at Sporting called Diamandi, very dominating right-sided centre-back. Very dominating. I'm talking Saliba dominating. That type of defender. And I looked at him, I thought a little while ago, I thought, do we need him and Saliba? Do we need something a bit more of a hybrid? And there's another player that was meant to be going to Ajax. It hasn't quite signed it, I don't believe. West Ham looked at him. Nottingham Forest looked at him. I think he's a bargain waiting to be snapped up by somebody. And we're the sort of club that buy him next time. Is Josip Sutalo from Dynamo Zagreb. Another right-sided defender that can run the ball out, play the ball out, travel with the ball, plays our passing football and carrying football. So, yeah, those are players that I sort of know that have been linked to us in recent past as a right-sided player. And it's just a matter of what we go for stylistically and if and when those are the names that we would really click on in the end.
I think my instinct is that we won't do anything. And to be clear, I'd be fine with that. Firstly, I don't think we want to buy anyone that jeopardizes Timber's squad role long term, because I think he's potentially a star for us in the future. And I don't see any reason why he can't come back from this. Yeah, Clive?
Well, I think this is how it all works, right? If you go for one of those players, depending which one you choose, it may not be Timber that gets chinned. It may be, someone like Tomiyasu. Do you know what I mean? And it may exit someone like that who I don't see signing a new contract yet. There's been people looking at him in Italy, for example, and that's what could happen. You sort of have a succession plan for Tomiyasu's role within the squad. Do you see what I mean? And then you have Holding go out of the squad, and you have Tierney go out of the squad, and suddenly you have a group that are on the right sort of contract timeline. Do you see what I mean? So I think that's where we could see something happen. Or maybe you can go again and think more creatively, where you think about having a right-sided defender, a right back that can play inside the centre mid. I'm not saying it's going to be this guy, but is it Tyler Adams, the sort of guys that leads lead centre mid? Someone who has had time at right back and centre mid. Somebody like that. I'm not saying that's the player, but it's 20 million.
We are down one American. So we may need a 1 in 1 out American policy there.
But that's what you could do. And that's where football's going, isn't it? Those players that can do more than one position. So I think it's going to be interesting what we do when we do it. I think we will do something earlier, but I don't think it's going to be someone to block Timber. No chance. But I think his versatility doesn't allow himself to be blocked, if that makes sense.
Adams is actually a really interesting name, because I think the kind of player who'd just be thrilled to be at Arsenal, right? Whatever opportunity he had at Arsenal. I'm not saying he's just happy for the opportunity. Like, he's a real player and he can play well, but he could slot in a few positions. I think he'd be able to come in and contribute right away without needing to be the guy right away. But tigerish, will get stuck in and recover the ball. Is the technical level high enough? It's probably right on the edge of being there, but I think someone who could fit into the squad. I don't think he's necessarily a Champions League level player, but you're not looking at a guy who's going to play 3,000 minutes for us. So it could be interesting. Look, all in all, I think the squad we have right now is, if this is the squad we went into the season with, I could live with it. If you said to me, we're going to do one more deal, I still think I'd want it to be a forward before a defender. Now, that might just be because Elliot only sees half the pitch when he watches football. So, I may be showing my bias, but I still think the group we have defensively is pretty good. And I just don't know from a forward standpoint. Now, we haven't seen Reece Nelson come back and play yet, and he was showing bright things at the start of last season. And can Reece Nelson come in and be the guy to back up Saka? He could be. It just, it's interesting. At almost every position, I feel like there's someone who could come in and do a job if we needed them for a while, except in Saka's position. But I guess, and we've covered this to death, so I won't go too big on it, except that maybe the guy who could do a job at Saka's position is Jesus, and then the guy who could do the job at Jesus' position is Trossard, or, you can start to make the pieces work, I guess is what I would say. So we'll have to see how that goes. I am not feeling, though, like we are in a bad spot with where our squad is right now. The thing Timber's injury definitely does, it puts a spotlight on how fit Zinchenko can stay. I think he played 26 games for us. 27 games played, 26 games started in the Premier League last season. There's going to be Champions League this season. I don't think there's a chance in heck, he says, not wanting to offend anybody. I don't think there's a chance he's going to play Tuesday, Saturday, or Wednesday, Sunday. I don't think that's really where Zinchenko is with his fitness, which means our Champions League lineups are going to be a little mix and match. Now, that's okay in the group stage potentially, depending on the group we get. That's not going to work if we get to the knockout rounds. And so it'll be interesting to see how we fortify by them. But we also have a January window we can look at if we have, a chance in both the league and the Champions League, and we really want to fortify, we can look at that. So I don't think we have to do anything right now. But I mean, Zinchenko maybe is back this weekend, which leads us to, or I can promise you this, actually. There's a 100% chance Zinchenko won't play this weekend because we don't play this weekend. So there's that. We play on Monday, obviously. Tim, it's a chance to segue, as they say in France. Segue, yeah. Let's start with Zinchenko, since we're on him, just to sort of finish off the left back thing. He's been in full training. He played those 10 minutes in the Ukraine or 15 minutes in the Ukraine charity match. No time like the present, right? I mean, I don't see Zinchenko as the type of guy who has a preseason form. I think he's such a technician and understands football well enough. If you saw his Rio Ferdinand interview or wherever it was, where he was embarrassed for Ferdinand, which is fair, as you would be. Clive looked embarrassed for Ferdinand when he did his interview with him as well. Both Clive and Zinchenko showing their ball knowledge was superior to Rio's, but
low bar.
Yeah, low bar. But we still respect the knowledge of both Clive and Zinchenko. Could you see him coming in? I mean, like, honestly,
yeah.
I kind of think so. Let's start there. Do you expect to see us go back to something more like a traditional Arsenal formation that we knew from last season? And do you think it will be Zinchenko who does it?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think he was training before the Forest game, but they didn't put him in the squad. And, whether that was just, let's just give him another week. They were already leaving Tierney out the squad, already had Gabriel on the bench. So I think that to me just looks like a fairly pragmatic decision. A kind of, we got a really good left-sided defender. Well, two really good left-sided defenders on the bench already in Gabriel and Kivior. Tierney's not even making the squad. Holding's not even making the squad. It's Forest, guys. There will have been a bit of that. I'm sure he wouldn't have vocalised it like that, but I think that was a fairly pragmatic decision. And even before this Timber injury, I think that was because, you know what, we got 9 days until our next game after this, and we're really going to need Zinchenko at Selhurst Park, where, he really made his name last season with his debut, and immediately, particularly because he was playing down the side where the away fans were sat, made a very, very immediate impression. So I absolutely, unless there's some kind of setback, which obviously you can't rule out with Zinchenko, I would be utterly amazed if he didn't play, and I think he'd have played anyway, regardless of the Timber thing. So yeah, I think we'll definitely see that, and it's just a case of what else we do back there. I imagine we'll bring Gabriel back in. I imagine it'll be last season's back four. Again, I don't think we'll do the Partey at right back thing because Palace have got some very dangerous wide players, even though they don't have Zaha anymore. They've still got plenty in those positions, and we know under Roy Hodgson they'll play that kind of counter-attacking. All the stuff that we had to try and counteract last year, we'll have to counteract this year. So I don't see him putting Partey there. I think it could very well be a Partey, Rice, Ødegaard midfield 3 with Havertz up front. I could see that. I really, really felt Nketiah would start v Forest, but this is a slightly different game. But then again, Eddie scored his goal, didn't he? And
yep.
Arteta said he trained brilliantly, and if he's done that, he might well keep his place. So I think we've still kind of got that dilemma, as it were, out of that kind of, there's probably like 5 players fighting for 3 positions there because Trossard didn't start the last game and he probably deserved to. Like, does he come in instead of Havertz, for example? Like, there's a lot of things we could do, but I am absolutely certain Zinchenko would start. I think that was always going to be the plan. I think that was sensible as well. That's an early example of a good use of our resources, of saying, you know what, this player gets injured a lot. He's had a couple of setbacks. We're well set at the back now. We're at home to Nottingham Forest. Let's not take any risks, because last season, I point to this game a lot. Last season, we played Forest at home, 30th of October, the 9th game of October for us, and we started Gabriel Jesus instead of Nketiah. And look, Jesus had that knee injury before he went to the World Cup. It's not a spectacular leap to me to suggest that it was a niggle for him then. And we played him against Nottingham Forest when we won 5-0. We took Saka off after 10 minutes, I think, at 0-0 because he got injured. And we still did them 5-0. Like, we probably didn't need to take that risk, and I hope that's a lesson learned. That, do you know what? We don't want to take opponents lightly, but you've got to use your squad intelligently. I think we did that. I think we did that with a view to this game, because this is when we're going to need Zinchenko, Partey, Rice. I think we need all three of those players. And then, the Havertz, Trossard, Nketiah bit, that I'm relaxed about. That can work itself out. I'm happy with whoever starts out of those, because the other guys can just come off the bench. But I think we need those players in this game.
Yeah. I can't figure out what I think we're going to do, because the one thing that the formation we use,
isn't it?
It is great. It's going to be awful for opposition. I think we'll get this game is going to tell us a lot, because if we do what we did against Forest again, then in my view, that's what we are intending to be this season. There is one critical thing that lineup did for us. It lets us put both Rice and Partey and Havertz on the pitch, plus a striker. It lets Havertz play the left 8 and Rice and Partey both start. There really isn't another formation that does that, unless you play Havertz at striker, but I mean with Havertz at left 8. So if he goes back to the back 4, Clive, and goes White, Saliba, Gabriel, and let's just say Zinchenko or whoever he picks, he's got to pick one of Partey or Rice, unless he's going to play Rice at left 8, but then he can't pick Havertz. And I feel like that lineup he used the opening day is the only one he can use where he gets all of them on the pitch. If he's using Havertz at left 8. So it's an interesting dynamic in terms of who he wants on the pitch, in what zones. Having Rice and Partey together to be able to recover the ball and progress the ball, I think is a really powerful tool to deploy against teams that we did not have last season. The challenge of Palace is going to be different. They won comfortably. I mean, 1-0 on opening day, but they were dominant over, Sheffield United away, a good performance. Where do you want to go first? You want to go with what you think we'll do, or do you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to face in Palace? And by the way, Olise is not fit, right? So I don't think he's in contention for this game.
Right. So let's take it one by one. I think we don't know this year away system Arsenal yet. If you want to call the Charity Shield an away game, I really like that side that we had out there, and I liked Havertz at centre forward. But again, positionally, let's just get in our brains, right? Havertz is a front 5 player that's going to play centre or towards the left, right? That seems to be what he's going to do for us. We haven't seen him what happens when Odegaard comes out, or if Havertz going to play there on occasion. So he's either a 10 or he's going to be an 8. And in the games, most games that we've seen so far, he's both. Sometimes he's a 9 or first phase. So we're just going to use his unique physical skills of being a very intense pressing cross-country runner that can post up, turn around, carry and do more things on the ball. Needs to be a bit more decisive, maybe a little bit more decisive, but he's on his first game and he's learning. And then he was very decisive at Wembley, by the way. So no problems there. I think defensively, Zinchenko could play. I also think Tomiyasu could play. Crystal Palace they've all they've done at the moment, I'm afraid, is remove their dependency on Zaha and put it all on Eze. And without Elise there, Eze is everything, and he plays down the middle as a 10. And we are very strong down the middle. They've got physical centre mids. I think it will be a physical game to win the battle. One thing that did stand out against Forest was our ability to win the ball back. And our PPDA was very, 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 very good, Elliot. And we had them choked, right? And this is the big improvement for me, is that off the ball's work is just gone through the roof. So we're now strangling teams, strangling them in. And if anything, our cohesion offensively was a little bit ugly and a little bit untidy, and we can work on that. And so I think we're going to do that again. We'll go a bit more physical in centre mid. I don't mind Zinchenko players. I don't mind Tomiyasu players. Whoever's got the best legs, right? Let's do it. Going away from home, I don't mind the 6-footer playing. Doesn't bother me. Don't show anyone, you know my phrase, don't show your knickers to anybody. Take away encouragement. Do not show them anything that you don't want them to see. And just completely take the even thought of victory away from them. So I would do that. But the one thing I am sort of maybe want to discuss a little bit is Eddie Nketiah, right? And his, not so much his play, but how his play affects our offensive cohesion. I think he plays quite well, but when he plays quite well, I'm not sure others around him play as well. Their passing doesn't seem to find him in the same way. It's something I had my eye on, and we lost cohesion with Eddie for a while, didn't we? Once he got in, and I'm looking at why. And when you look at the runs, they're a little bit late. They're a little bit. Sometimes we run offside early. Sometimes it's just. I think from a cohesive continuity point of view in the last third, I think we suffer a bit. And then when you see Jesus and Trossard and Havertz play there, I think they're on the same rhythm and the same beat. And I just see an IQ synergy when they play. Now, Eddie played quite well for the first hour of that game the other day. But we watched it. There was lots of missed beats, weren't there, mate? There were lots of missed beats. And
yeah,
I think it's something that happened last year. It's something that I've got my eye on, really. It's not about performance. It's about timing and cohesion and making sure others play well around you. And I think that's a little worry for me, actually, because it's been something that we've seen for a while.
Yeah, and looking at the way Palace played against Sheffield United, I mean, they were pretty dominant. 24 shots to 8. They outshot them. I mean, they only won 1-0 because, they only have so much goal-scoring talent. But Easy and Edouard were really the stars of that game for them. And Easy, Eze, sorry, I should say. His name is Eze. I think
Eze is better.
Right.
Otherwise, your mentions will get destroyed.
Yeah. I mean, the Kesha thing already ensured that. But Eze is correct, yeah. It's just what I do. I apologize, but I'm a learning computer. So, I'm going to get better as I go. Bear with me. He had 8 shots and 7 key passes in this game. Just on the data, one of the players of the opening weekend. He did, as Clive rightly points out, bear that responsibility. And then his link up with Edouard meant that Edouard finished with 7 shots himself and 2 key passes. And Edouard, I think, had 1.23 expected goals in this game alone. And just for people who aren't super XG knowledgeable, like if you're over 0.6 or 0.7 XG a game, you're one of the best in the game. If you're at 1 XG a game, you're Messi, you're Ronaldo, you're those kind of guys. So, I mean, that again, it's one game. I get it. I'm just saying that's where their threat came from. And that's what we'll have to neutralize. I don't expect them to have much of the ball. We do know that they've always been a bit of a combative side as a last thing on this, because I want to get to our sales and I want to have a little fun at Chelsea and United's expense a bit. But Tim, it is Roy Hodgson somehow still going, still kicking around. And we know the kind of football he's going to play. They have an aging squad in some positions. I know going to Palace is a hard game. We had a hard game at Palace to open the season last season. We got out of there, I think, with a 2-0, but made it safe late. And it was much more back and forth than we would like. I actually went 2 seasons ago to the Emirates game where Lacazette equalized late. We started that game on fire and then could not pass the ball. Palace just smothered us. I got to say, I think we might go with the same back 3 system in this game. I really do. I think Mikel wants to get all those guys on the pitch together, maybe to be Trossard up front. But it wouldn't surprise me if Nketiah kept his place. He scored. It wouldn't surprise me. I can't get past the fact that I think we have too much physicality now in midfield. I don't think that they will be able to live with that. I think our counter pressing, as we saw against Forest, is just devastating. And Forest really wanted to sit. I actually think an away game might suit us a little more, only in the sense that Palace will try to maybe play a little more at home than Forest came to play. away. And that just means more turnovers, more transition opportunities. And I don't think you're going to be able to stop Saka and Martinelli from killing you in transition. So just sort of a quick prediction of how you see the game going. Because I think, interestingly, we might find this one in a different way, a more comfortable game than what we played against Forest, where it was just that low block. You're trying to pick the lock for 90 minutes.
Yeah, we've never had an easy game at Selhurst Park ever since they've come up. Just go back through them. Even the ones we've won, it's quite often like a late second goal or something. Even when we've done that more than once. Even I think the first season we played there when they came up, I think Arteta got sent off actually, and we won that 2-0, but sealed it with a late goal. In this fixture, it's all about the first goal. It's all about the first goal. Like, just go back and look at Palace away every season. First goal wins, because that kind of that really suits Palace in particular, because once you go a goal up, they have to open up a little bit more. So it's all about like what we did last year that was so good. We got control early. Like, again, if you go back and watch that game from last year, even like Martinelli scores quite early, and he missed a sitter like a couple of minutes before, about 3 minutes in, where Jesus went on this mad dribble, and we just had Zinchenko and Xhaka just overloading them to death, and we took control early. Now, we were a bit more of a surprise then. But then again, maybe we're a bit more of a surprise now, to be honest. We've kind of always done that back three thing. When Zinchenko plays, he's not really playing at left back. It's just a case of whether it's the right back or the left back that inverts. I can't see Partey playing right back. I think that would be a mistake, particularly because I take your point on the midfield. Palace will bypass that, with Anderson at the back in particular. Like, we saw what they did last year, and I know it was Zaha, but like I said, they've still got guys out there. They'll just go over the top of it. It'll be missiles. So, I would have Ben White at right back, or at the very least Tomiyasu. I really don't see Partey playing there. I think that would be a big mistake. I think we'll see him back in midfield, and it will be Partey Rice in that kind of box shape that we saw against Forest, with the 2 6s trying to connect to the 2 8s with loads and loads of rotation around it. You can read my column this week, which has just gone up, which looks at Forest, at how often those players all swapped over and how often that midfield rotated, clearly with a view to building a bit more unpredictability in the team. Like, Havertz was popping up in areas that Xhaka never popped up in, like the right channel. One of the things I'm really excited about that we didn't really see against Forest, just because of the numbers they had in the box, every single time the ball was wide, Havertz was either on the back post or centre forward position. Like, once that ball's wide, he's a second centre forward. It's clear that we want him scoring some headed goals this season. We didn't really see that against Forest because the ball didn't come in that often, because they had like 10 guys in the box and 3 guys on Saka, and it was difficult to get a cross in. But we might see that this time. There might be a little bit more space to get some of those crosses in. So I think this will just be like every other game at Selhurst Park, and we need to get control early. We need to quieten that crowd down like we did last year, because all you could hear was the Zinchenko chant for the first 20 minutes last year. I'd love a repeat of that, because it'll be his first game for a while. So, that for me is all about like getting control early, like cut off their legs. Do not give them anything to get excited about, because they're a transitional team. They have a noisy, active crowd. And if you let that get on top of you, look at 2 seasons ago, we were 2-0 down. We conceded 2 goals very quickly in the first half. Game was over. And that's where it's going to be won and lost. How quickly we get to grips with this game and don't give them hope, to use an Artetaism.
Yeah, and I mean, Crystal Palace made basically no subs in their first game, by the way. They made a sub in 90+2. It's the only substitution they made. They have a small squad. They don't have Olise. That right-hand side, if you want to see some fun, let's watch Martinelli, because it does not look like a good flank for Crystal Palace. They've got some old dudes over there. Playing right wing is the nearly 32-year-old Jordan Ayew, who somehow still gets picked for them. And at right back, they started Joel Ward, who's about to go 34 years old. I don't know, man. I think looking at our squad, it's going to be really hard for them to compete. I think it's going to be hard for them to compete technically. Defensively, I think they're going to get exposed. And in midfield, yeah, I mean, how are they going to cope with Rice and Partey? It's just not going to happen. It feels like a game that we can be. I think we can be able to show more of our football expansively than we were able to against Forest. So I'm really looking forward to it. I want to get to our sales. I want to get to a little bit on United and Chelsea. And we're already about 50 minutes in, which is pretty par for the course. So settle in, everybody. Settle in. Because boy, do I have some hashtag brands to tell you about today. I got a note. They said, hey, we dropped some new brands for you to talk about in the latest episode. I said, okay, that's great. And I see 4 of them here. So let's just settle in. Let's get comfortable and let's see how this goes. That sound fair? Fair enough. Well, look, one that I am very excited to tell you about is I'm not even going to do like a neat segue or a segue even or a segui. I'm just going to talk about Manscaped. Because Manscaped sent me a new product. They just sent it to me, just showed up in the mail, didn't know it was coming, but it was their beard hedger. And I mean, for those of you who watch on YouTube, no, I don't wear my facial hair as a beard, but I don't like to shave. And so I get that scruffy thing going, and I don't mind a little scruff, but there's a certain length that doesn't work. This beard hedger thing they have is awesome. It has 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard. It is waterproof. It's wireless. You charge it with a USB-C cable, but the battery life, I think, is over 8 hours of charging, of shaving. It's just a really great tool. And so if you do wear your facial hair as beard, or if you just like to trim up, if you travel a lot, it is a really small, compact device that you can take with you and travel with. It's just great. And I've always felt that, look, if we're going to talk about being manscaped or personscaped, I think is appropriate, then your face is a part of your person and you should scape your person. Scape your person? Shave your person. Shave your face. That's the idea. Let's do manscaped.com. Manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision for 20% off and free shipping. Okay? That's 20% off. That's a lot. And free shipping is also nice. So get 20% off free shipping with code manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code ArsenalVision. Hit the refresh button with Manscaped is what they're saying there. I don't know exactly what that means, but you get the idea. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Mental health is health. Therapy is a way to take care of your mental health, which is a way to take care of yourself. It really doesn't get any easier than that. If you go to the gym or you work out at all, you're taking care of your body. If you watch what you eat or your nutrition at all, you're taking care of your body. If you go to a doctor, you're taking care of your body. If you're not taking care of your mind, you're not taking care of your body. And your mind is the most important organ in your body. So I would say that you need to think about that. And what I would also say as someone who did therapy more as a maintenance thing and less as a crisis thing is sometimes you need therapy in a crisis, of course, but sometimes you can avoid a mental health crisis if you are taking care of your mental health regularly. And I just think monitoring your mental health is so important. And while you have friends and you have partners and they're there to help you, a professional really understands how to create that healthy environment for you psychologically. So BetterHelp it's convenient, right? It's on the web. You don't have to get in the car. You don't have to drive to an office. You can do camera off if anonymity is better for you. It's just a wonderful service that you can try now. You can match with a therapist in under 48 hours. So our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/vision. That's BetterHelp, HELP, betterhelp.com/vision. We're talking a lot of good healthy stuff here. You're going to be healthy by shaving off all the hair you don't need. You're going to be healthy with your mind. You're going to be healthy with your body because you're going to drinkag1.com. They changed their URL. Okay. I started taking AG1 because of gut health issues. It's become a regular part of my everyday routine. So I do still drink coffee. I drink less of it because AG1 is great for energy. And I was probably drinking a little too much coffee, getting a little shaky. You could probably imagine just listening to me what I'd be like on too much coffee. AG1 is 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, adaptogens, probiotics. It is really all-in-one support for your nutrition in terms of like vitamins. So, for example, the multivitamins I was taking, I turned around the bottle and looked on the back, and what do you know? The first ingredient is like corn syrup or sugar. You don't need that. This is low sugar. It's keto-friendly, paleo-friendly, vegan-friendly, all of that. Is designed by sports scientists, right? So it's designed with recovery in mind for sleep, for energy, for recovery, and of course for gut health, as I mentioned. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/vision. That's drinkag1.com/vision. Check it out. And I told you there were 4, Okay, I told you there were 4. I saved the one that we do at the end so that Clive can do the thing that he does, which is Indeed. Okay, really simple. If you want to have the best team in your organization, hiring is really, really important. And Indeed is the hiring platform where you attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. I want to tell you quickly about Instant Match. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data. I mean, that's it. And this is the thing. Indeed is the only job site where you only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements, right? You pay for what you get, not what you don't get, which is great. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Get the best talent in one place without going to multiple job sites and then only paying for the applicants that meet your must-have requirements. Couldn't be better. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports and support the show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Some apply. Need to hire. You need. Yeah. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Did it. Okay. Theo Walcott is retired. We love Theo Walcott. We'll probably do an episode on the Patreon about him. He is one of my favorite players from an era that I think is misunderstood. And he's a player I think is misunderstood. So Theo, thank you for your service. No, thank you for scoring against us last season. Yeah, I really didn't enjoy that. I just think basically people underrate Theo for 2 reasons. One, he probably never hit the heights that his talent promised. Not his fault that he was taken to the World Cup at the age he was, but he probably never hit the height that his talent promised, which is understandable. Theo Walcott also, that second contract at Arsenal didn't go well, and I really think injuries wrecked him. But I'll put it to you this way. We think like Martin Odegaard is the greatest thing since sliced bread because he is. He had a 15-goal and 10 assist season last season. In 2012-2013, at age 23, Theo Walcott, in 24 starts, 14 goals, 10 assists. 14 goals and 10 assists for Arsenal. In 23 starts, a few seasons later, he had a similar good season. Before that, 8-8, 9-7. He was a lot more productive than people give him credit for. And I, for one, appreciate Theo and thank him for his service. Clive. Sales. Let's do sales real quick. People are weirdly... So, look, this is where things have changed for me. I used to be insufferable. People are saying, what do you mean used to be? I used to be insufferable about value and squad building, and we have to think smarter about squad building. But here's the thing. First of all, we built a hell of a good squad, so I'm more relaxed. But the thing that's changed maybe more than anything, Clive, is that we have reached a weird period of squad building in the Premier League right now where everything is untethered from value. It basically seems like certain owners are now willing to just spend and spend and spend. And so I no longer really know how important it is to recoup fees for players and get money in so we can spend money out. You know, in the Arsene Wenger era, it was easy. If we didn't sell, we couldn't buy. Now that stunk, but we understood it. I'm not sure I understand where we are right now. So while I think we need to sell players, I also don't really have any knowledge of how much we need to bring in the revenue for us to do it. I think there's another move left for us in this window. I think we need to move players out to do it, not so much to get the money in, but just to clear the numbers. We have too many players in certain areas. So how are you thinking about the importance of sales and some of the debates that are raging online about this player? We're only going to get this much for this player. That's great. Like, does it matter? Does it matter what we recoup for these players right now? Hard to know.
Yeah, we're not a charity. It does matter a bit, but what matters just as much is the unity within the squad, right? So people are not being used. You know, we've seen what happens when that happens. You know, people training separately and things like that. It's never good, and we can all see from the YouTubes and the videos that we see that unity and family and togetherness and the love that's in that in that club at the moment is high. And you just don't want anything that's going to affect that, you know. So I think it's a part of who we are, right? So there's a few players out there that are on the block, shall we say? So should I just go through a couple, Elliot, to see where we are?
Yeah, please do.
Well, the Balogun one is the main one, and Monaco did have a bid around 40 million euros, but there's a rumor today that Monaco are shifting towards Patson Daka, and if that's the case, that's the blow. Fulham are thinking about Balogun, West Ham are thinking about Balogun, but nobody's come forward and really, you know, made Arsenal feel comfortable about the numbers, etc. So that's a moving picture. One has popped up today. I'm not sure on the exact numbers, but Nuno Tavares to Nottingham Forest. And that could, again, I'm reading what everyone else is reading. That could be around 30 million. I'm not sure if that's true. But that's a good move for him, given the fact what we saw Forest do at the weekend. They're very much a sit-in team and transition. And you want to see, Nuno's a transition player, isn't he? So he sort of suits their model. So that's one that's happening there. I haven't heard much on Cedric. I've not heard much on Sambi Lokonga. There was a rumour of Monaco for Sambi. Not heard much on him. Kieran Tierney now. Now, we all thought that Newcastle, in our minds, was going to be the place he'd end up due to just to how he plays and how they play. Looked like a perfect fit. But Newcastle are in talks now with Chelsea, looking at a young player called Lewis Hall, who's an 18-year-old centre-back. Very, very well respected on the England track. And again, who have Newcastle got as their director of football? Dan Ashworth, the key guy that was at Brighton, for example. They're talking nearly at 30 million for this 18-year-old. And maybe that shows you where back to what you taught me, Elliot, really, back to what people value in squad members right now. A couple of years ago when we went young, we were paying like 50 million for Ben White, but you can recoup that. You can recoup that. A 26-year-old Kieran Tierney with pelvic issues historically, and that's a problem for somebody. They're paying for somebody that potentially will be 30 when he walks out, and what will he be worth at 30? And so people are really wary about those players now, and we have to be very, very careful about mid-20 second contracts, because we can be creating problems for ourselves. The Kieran Tierney sale is really important, and I think if we don't get that sale, we may have to do something that we don't want to do. And Mikel said something about this, and it's been in my mind. He said, the market is unpredictable. We may have to do something. Something may happen we may not like. 3 days later, the Gabriel story appeared. And I'm not saying we're going to sell him.
Don't, please.
I'm not saying we're going to sell him. That doesn't make any sense. We just lost a defender we're using on the left-hand side. But sometimes things happen that you don't want to happen. We got Pepe bubbling in the background as well. Besiktas, free transfer potentially, and it's all about the contract cancellation, if it's going to happen or not, what that looks like. There's still a bit there. Oh, great point, Tim. I was going to get to that. There's still a bit there, and Tim just typed the window, and it's something to really. This is something to talk about. The Saudi window, I believe, shuts 3 weeks after our window, Tim. I think it is 3 weeks. What's going to happen then? I'll tell you what's going to happen. Not just for us. Everybody with their dirty rubbish is going to be turning around to Saudi Arabia saying, take our players. And if I'm Saudi Arabia, I'm taking them. You know what it does? It creates a wide bedrock of players coming out of the Premier League that next year, those players will be talking to their counterparts in strange situations right now. Next year, that could grow again. So right now, we're thinking about getting money in our back pockets for FFP and make sure we can build our squads. They're thinking, Premier League players, come to us because now we can create something we can sell. If you look at what Saudi are doing, they're getting players who've got big followings, big Twitter followings, so they can then promote the game. And I think we're sleepwalking into something here. I'm not sure if it's good, bad yet. I'm still working it through my head. But let's see what the world looks like when that Saudi window shuts and how we feel about January and how you feel about next summer. I think this conversation is just starting, Elliot, and our opinions on it are yet to be formed, mate.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening in the game at the macro level beyond just, what Arsenal are up to that I think force us to update how we think about things like the transfer window and squad sizes and player values. And I'll admit that I'm struggling because on the one hand, there's a part of you that is married to the way I've always thought about squad building, right? Players have value. You have to make sure that, you don't pay over the odds for a player based on what he's worth. And you have to make sure that you recoup the requisite value for a player when you sell him. And you got to be careful about the wages you give out because then the player can't be moved or he can't. And then there's a part of me that looks at like what Chelsea are doing, what's happening in Saudi Arabia. And to some extent, what Arsenal have done the last few windows with their spending, it makes me think if it's silly not to update those priors. to understand market dynamics are changing. I mean, we brought in David Raya. I don't think anyone would have said that was a priority. He's going to be making a good wage with us. He signed a new deal with Brentford. It's a loan to go compete for a goalkeeper spot that no one would have said at the start of the window was like a priority. But that's what we've done. Now, years ago, I would have been saying, why use the resources there when, we could better use them at right wing? And, that's more of a need. But again, if the resources are growing and the need to manage them more carefully is receding, then you have to update your priors on that and the extent to which you get worked up about it. I'm not really sure. Now, there's sometimes, Tim, where it's not just about the money. Sometimes it's just better for a player to go. Like, I think Kieran Tierney, it is better for everybody if Tierney goes. Because as we already discussed when we got to the left back conversation, whether you think he's a great player, a bad player, or somewhere in between, I don't think he's a bad player, but somewhere in between, his opportunities are going to be very limited. He makes 120 grand a week. He's Scottish international in the prime of his career. He needs to play. That's a guy who should play, if he can stay fit, 38 games a season, and not 500 minutes, which is what he may get at Arsenal. I think he should go. Obviously, Pepe needs to go. I've just seen Runnerson is, I think, on loan to Cardiff. When that loan ends, his contract will end. So goodbye, Runnerson. We hardly knew you. Like, do you think, value aside, that sometimes it's addition by subtraction? You just need players to go, like Rob Holding, like Kieran Tierney. There's just a time for players to move on, and it's best for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's best for them as well. I do find it interesting, actually, some of the guys we've completely excluded, like Pepe, for example. Like, I'm pretty sure, and we all know, like Rob Holding, for example, was in the leadership group. He's really considered a good guy to have around and all of that. But it's interesting. I'm not suggesting anything's amiss here particularly, but it is interesting. Like, some guys been properly sidelined, like some aren't even back at the training ground, some clearly, like there was a picture, I think Cedric posted it was like Cedric, Lokonga, Tavares, he wasn't even there. He didn't even make that bit. He didn't even make the detention room. But where it's just like those guys are obviously separate. And look, that might have just been, look, it's the day before the match. You guys aren't going to be in the squad. We just want the squad here for this training session. It might be innocent, but do you know what I mean? Like, there seems to be like a level, and I do even think it's not. I wouldn't like Tierney not being in the squad. I get it, because like I said, like Gabriel and Kivior were on the bench, so. Like Zinchenko's out and Tierney still doesn't even get on the bench. But there is a part of me that wonders if that's a bit pointed, if there's a little bit of, come on guys, phone your agents up, get your act together, there's nothing for you here. Like, I definitely think with someone like Pepe, that feels really pointed that he hasn't even come back to London. That to me, that is clearly, rightly or wrongly, I don't know, we don't know the discussions and all of that, that is, we're afraid you're just going to stick around for a year because this is the contract you're on. You're probably not going to get it anywhere else. And like, he's entitled to do that as well. He's completely entitled to do that. So it does seem like some more than others. And like, Cedric, like, there might as well be pictures of Arteta chasing him off with a broom or something, like, or like when you get some kind of, I don't know if this is language I should use, some kind of unwanted insect in the house. Like, I get loads of flies through this back door, man. And the amount of my day I spend with a tea towel, like chasing them all off. Not that I want to compare Cedric and Tavares and all that to insects, because I really don't. It's just a humbled analogy.
It's the point of something in your home that is no longer there. Maybe never should have been there in the first place.
Yeah. It's like, look, you're a fly. You've got a complete right, like out there, fly. Like, you've got the whole world, you've got the whole sky, man. Don't come in my living room. I fear I've got off the point here a little bit.
Just a bit.
But it does feel like there's some jockeying going on there. It does feel, and sometimes that's what you got to do to make a sale, because like, it's getting towards the end of the window, and Tierney's kind of a surprising one, isn't it? That's another one. I thought that would be quite an easy sale, to be honest. I thought the only reason it might drag out this long is trying to like haggle on a price with Newcastle. It doesn't even look like that's happening. And that, I was quite blasé about that one. I thought he's a good player. He'll get a Premier League club, no problem whatsoever, and it'll probably be Newcastle. But none of that seems to be happening. And I don't know, that does make me feel that maybe Tierney's not just not fitting our style, but maybe he's becoming a bit of a throwback in general. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but we've said on this podcast a number of times over the years, sometimes the market tells you about your players, and with Tierney, there just doesn't seem to be much interest, and that does surprise me a bit. Same with Holding, albeit I always felt that Holding, the type of club, like the clubs in like the bottom 8, they do tend to shop late. They tend to, I think Tony Pulis used the phrase once, like, we have to wait for the tree to shake and then see what falls on the ground, basically. So that does happen a bit, but again, there hasn't even been a sniff of any suggestion of interest from anywhere, which really does strike me as quite odd. Like, even like the British players that tend to be easier to move on, and if anything, get you a premium. Like, I'm surprised that's not happening. I'm not surprised that Nicola Pepe, Tavares, Cedric, I'm not surprised that they're kind of kicking around. I do think there will be interest in Tavares, and it sounds like there is, and that, like, because he's young and there's any number of leagues he can go to, and he's not going to be that expensive. So I'm less worried about that one. But I'm a bit concerned that Holding and Tierney were the two players I thought would be slam dunk sales this summer, that we seem to be having trouble moving on. And I do feel like there's a little bit of, when was the last time you spoke to your agent?
Yeah, well, look, this is the one thing that I think people just have to really get their heads around. There are two markets. There's the market for your players if United or City or Arsenal or Chelsea or Liverpool want them. Maybe Real Madrid. Then there's every other market. And every other market is, you're paying them over $100,000? I'll give you a pound for them. There's been some really interesting work done on this, and we have to remember that all wage discussions are hypothetical because wages are not publicly known. But there are a lot of Premier League clubs, a lot, I think it was half or more actually, that don't have a player on $100,000 a week, or have one player on $100,000 a week. Kieran Tierney would be by far the highest paid player on every club in Germany, apart from like 2. Every club in Spain, apart from like 3 or 4. Every club in France, apart from 2. Every club in the Premier League, apart from half. Like, these things matter. These wages matter in terms of your ability to move on a player. So, when people say, how can Lewis Hall go for $35 million, but we can't get Lewis Hall's probably on like $10,000 a week. And he's 18, so his ceiling is the sky. Kieran Tierney's in his prime. However good you think he is now is as good as he's going to be. So if you buy Lewis Hall for $35 million at 18 and you put him on $40,000 a week, you could probably sell him for $60 million in 3 seasons if you want. So he's a great asset to own. He's affordable to acquire because wages are a huge part of what these players cost. And when you play for a big club, you're probably on a big wage. That's why sales are so difficult and why Saudi Arabia has bailed out a couple of clubs. Because if your squad players are on over $100,000 a week, you better hope a big club wants them. Because if a big club doesn't want them, you can't sell them. You can't. Harry Maguire is not going anywhere. Harry Maguire's not going anywhere because no one's going to pay him his wage. And why would Harry Maguire say, yes, I'll take a 50% wage cut? He's not going to. So that's where the dynamic matters. Value seems to, we've decoupled from value with a few clubs. Arsenal, City, Chelsea, Liverpool, those kind of clubs. But we have not decoupled from value at the smaller clubs. And that dichotomy is creating tension in the market. I don't think we're worse if we don't sell. I just think there's some players that we should move. We have no idea right now if we need to sell to make buys. We have no idea if, Mikel's got a check that he's got to cash for the money he's already spent, and he's got to get some players out of there. We can't sell Gabriel. We can't do that. Now, to be fair, Gabriel might be looking at the wages Kai Havertz is getting, and Rice is getting, and Saka is getting, and Martinelli's now getting, and Saliba's now getting. He signed a contract in October of 2022. He might already be thinking, I'm underpaid. And if Saudi Arabia is offering him $500,000 a week or whatever the heck the wages, maybe he gets his head turned, but you can't sell him. We'll just have to see how that shakes out. So it'll be interesting. I don't think it's the end of the world. I can understand that, how hard it is because you got people online who will say, I remember at the beginning of the window, I said, you know what? I think 35 million for Kieran Tierney would be a very fair price. And people were furious with me about that. What do you mean? He's one of the best fullbacks in the league, 50 million or don't sell. Now you got people saying, how can the club not sell Kieran Tierney? What's going on with the club? Like, you can't win, right? Because where's the market? Clive, I want to move on from this topic just really quickly to touch on something that I have to laugh about because I think it's quite funny, and that was Manchester United's opening game. I think most people think City and Arsenal are two favorites for the title, but another club that's mentioned in there is Manchester United. They allowed 24 shots at home to Wolves, 17 of them in the box, and basically midfield was lava. Every time Wolves ran at them, they were running back to their goal. They were running through acres of space. Did you get a little enjoyment from watching United's opening game, and do you think that like the problems that you saw in that team in that game are going to carry on? Because I have to say, that's one of the most shocking opening day performances I saw from a team that people expect to be half decent.
Yeah, it was. I was shocked. I didn't say it to anybody, but I've been watching all the pre-season stuff about, the preview stuff on different teams. And Wolves are one of those teams that have lost a lot of players. I'm thinking Manchester United are going to thrash them. I just didn't say it out loud. I've just said it out loud now, mind. But and basically, when the game started, Wolves looked excellent. Gary O'Neill, so glad he's landed at a half-decent club because I think he was very unfortunate to lose his job. And he's only been there a few days, and I don't know if he's had a great effect, but while I was watching that TV, they won every race to the ball. They were so brave. They carried through. They ran around. They ran over. They just ran over these players and made them look like millionaire fat blokes on the beach. Right? Honestly, it was incredible to see them just being run through. And I think, at this stage of the season, it's very difficult to sort of draw yourself conclusions around certain squads. But that looked really worrying if you're a Manchester United fan. So we were talking about ourselves last week about the lack of cohesion maybe, but mate, our ability and our synergy defensively and our ability to win the ball back was top of the table stuff, right? So, and that's very repeatable. If you've got levels of stability, you've got a chance. Manchester United have got no stability, none. Fullbacks are not doing it for me. I am still not convinced by Martinez. Harry Maguire thinking, I might get back in here. I'm not going anywhere. I might get back in. Varane looked really good, but we all know that he's a calf strain away from being out for a month, right? And Casemiro, well, let's not talk about him. Mason Mount's good, only going one way. Yeah, and Fernandes, that's what he likes. Eriksen and Sancho came on and stabilised them. And they're not, Eriksen's getting on now, and Sancho, we're still not sure about him. Their best player has no touches because he's standing in the wrong position in centre forward. And they got two wastes of strays out on the wings, right? With no power about them. Honestly, we build these teams up and they're just not complete. It's the same for Liverpool and Chelsea. They're not complete. There's not enough goals at Chelsea. There's not enough stability in midfield for Liverpool. They're incomplete teams that are now thrashing around in the market to try to make themselves complete. We got a little work to do, but it's small by comparison. And ours is more housekeeping. And so, yeah, let's see how this goes. But I don't want to get overexcited in the middle of August. But lads, we must have a chance. We must have a chance. See what I mean? Lads, we got a chance here. We got a chance. We can just do good things and get a bit more. We've already had 2 knee issues in the first few weeks, right? So we need a bit of luck. But we've got a chance.
You know what the opening weekend made me realize, you guys? More than anything. It made me realize why it's absolutely smart to pay £105 million for Declan Rice or even £110 million for Moises Caicedo, because Manchester United played Mount, Bruno, and aging or aged Casemiro, and they could not stop anyone. And Liverpool played 3 8s. And it was the craziest shit I've ever seen. And Chelsea didn't have a midfield, so they've rebuilt it completely. I mean, Enzo looked really good. Now they get Caicedo next to him. Now they get Lavia. Why are those players going for so much? Because City win the league thanks to Rodri. We're going to challenge for the league thanks to Thomas Partey and Declan Rice and even a little bit of Jorginho. And you look around the rest of the league and midfield is not good. Central midfield in particular. And is it worth $105 million for Declan Rice? Yeah, a physical, athletic, legendarily good ball winner, ball recoverer. Other clubs don't have it. And I mean, Casemiro's going to be on yellow cards 15 minutes in every game if he looks like this the rest of the season with no support and trying to stop guys from running past him. You saw the same for Lissandro. Yeah, I think this game made me think less of United, but made me realize why people are willing to pay so much for central midfielders. I think we should leave it there. We've gone on long enough. Quick programming note, though. Because we play Monday, there'll be an instant reaction Monday, but there won't be a main pod Monday. We'll save that for after the game. It'd be silly to do a main pod on Monday before we play. That would be silly. So we won't do it because we're not silly people. We're very, very serious people. As you know about me. Let's leave it there. Tim's on Twitter, @Stominator. Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Clive's on Twitter, Clive PFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
We will, of course, have more content for you if you need it over on the Patreon side of things. We'll have a pod coming out tomorrow and maybe one ahead of the game on Monday. By the way, we do a cocktail hour live stream in the evenings UK time on Fridays, so you can check that out and over on YouTube. And other than that, we'll leave it there. Big game Monday. I think we're going to be great. I feel really good about it, which... I know, don't jinx it, Elliot. No, we're good. We're good. Relax. We're good. We're going to be good. Everything is going to be good. So with that, we will say we love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Palace. No.